Hi viewers, and welcome to the channel, and welcome to another part of the Learning Python from a FreeCAD perspective. And in our previous video we looked at a macro to colour individual faces of an object by passing in the object and the faces that we want to colour. And when we run this macro, you'll see that we return a list full of tuples, full of colours, and our object has a number of faces coloured that we've just passed in. Now we're going to change this slightly, because at the moment you'll find, if you've already experimented with it, only the part objects get coloured, not the part design objects. We need to make a slight modification in there to change those, because we're looking at the body and we need to change the colour of the faces of the pad in this instance, and this is known as the tip. And we need to change the tip colour rather than the body colour. So we'll be looking at that, and also we'll be changing this function to allow us to use the collision detection in there and blending this function in with our main code. So I hope you're enjoying this series, and let's take a look at this code. If you like this video, please hit a like and also subscribe to the channel. I also have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate to my contributions to the community, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0. So this is our colour face function, and as you can see we're passing in the box. Now the box is the cube. If you look down the bottom left hand side there, it says internal name box, and that's the ID of the object that's being passed. So we can see we're passing that box there, or that cube. That works fine as we saw, and we can see that the colour has changed for those faces there. But if we change this, so we're passing in the body, so we click on the body there, and you can see that down here we've got internal name. It's coming out of box at the moment, but if you roll over there and look down to the bottom left, you can see that's coming out body now. So we change this to body, then this will fail, and it will silently fail. So we'll run this now, macro, execute macros. We can see that we do pull back the faces, but none of the colouring has changed. Now the reason why that is because we need to colour something called the tip. So this is the last action that's been placed upon this part design object here. So the last action was the pad there. If we had a pocket on top of the pad, then the last action will be the pocket. This is known as the tip. And if I click on the body here and come down, you can see we've got tip there, and that points to the pad. But part objects don't have a tip. So we're going to get into a problem here. We're going to have to determine whether we're dealing with a part object or a part design object. Now there is a way to do this quite easily, because what will happen is when we change this, and we're going to change the colour, so we're going to come in, we're looking for the object, view object.diffuse colour, and if we look at the object that's being passed in, this is FreeCAD.ActiveDocument.getObject, the body, so we're passing in the body. Now that object is a view object, but that object, if we look over to this left hand side, it also has a label, a base feature, and this tip. And this is what we want. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say object.tip.viewObject diffuse color, and that will color the diffuse color of that tip then. So that will color the diffuse color of this pad. Now if I run this now, you can see the body has been detected and the faces have been passed, and we have a look back, we can see we've got colors for those faces that we passed in. But what happens now when we pass in the box, because that hasn't got a tip? So we do macro, execute macro. Well, we're getting an error now. So we get something called an exception, and this comes up on the left hand side here. It's got traceback, most recent call, last, and if we look through, you can see we've got the change color coming in, and it's saying down the bottom primitive py object has no attribute tip, which is true. Now we can go and check to see if the attribute is there, or we can do something with a try except. Now what a try except does, it will try the code. If an exception is run, then it will run a block of code in that exception. So let me demonstrate. So we'll come in here, and we're going to look at where this exception is being caused. So on line 13, you can see it's line 13 in color face, and that's our color face function there. If we go to line 13, and all we're going to do is come in here, I'm going to tab over and type the words try, followed by a colon. Now anything in the try needs to be tabbed, so anything here will be tried, and if an exception is raised, so except, then anything in this except will be run. So in this case we're trying the object.tip view object diffuse color. If that fails, now I'm going to copy that, and we're going to come down to the except, and I'm just going to remove that tip. So we'll try this piece of code. If that fails, it will come into the exception and try this piece of code. Now if we've got code after this, such as print, and we're going to say try OK, or tip colored OK, then if this fails, this won't be run. It will automatically just jump into this exception. So I'm going to copy that print, and I'm going to do the same in here, and tab in, and we're going to say something like part colored OK. Let's try that code now. So macro, execute macro. You can see the box has been pulled in, and the faces, and it's saying part colored OK. So what's happened, it's come into the try, it's tried to color the tip, it's failed, it's skipped over this code here and dropped into the accept. In the accept, it then just does a normal color. So it's coloring that object normally now, just by using object.view object.diffuse color, and then it says part colored OK. So if we run this with the body now, macro, execute macro, and we come into what's been output, we can see the body, we can see the faces, and we can see now that the tip colored OK. So it's running these two commands without failing. And once it's run those two commands, it doesn't go into the accept, and it carries on with any code that's below here. Considering this is the last commands in here, then it will just carry on and finish the program. And if I put it in here, inside this function, print, and then in here we can put complete, a macro, execute macro, then you can see it's coming down and hitting the complete there. So the last command it's run, it was tip colored, and then complete. So it's done in here, tip colored, no need to do the exception, come into the print, complete. And that's how exceptions work. What's happening is the code's raising an exception. It's known as raising that exception if something goes wrong, and then we're dealing with that exception. We're catching that exception. If we go back to our macro, we can see we've colored those faces in there. So before we start to blend the function to color the faces in with our main code, let's take a quick look at something we have to change with this. At the moment, we're coming in and getting our selection and going through each of those selections and comparing them to see if they're collided. We're currently setting our dictionary object with the name of our shape or our body or our object to either true or false, whether it's collided or not. This has to change. This has to actually store away the faces. So what we need to do we need to come in here and, well, we're going to be changing the faces instead. So if you think we're going to come in here and say, because these are a list of faces, remember these active faces and obstacle faces coming back are from the proximity check, and it pulls back a list of faces that are in collision. So a dictionary object, act.name, and placing a open and close square bracket in there to say this is a new list. And then coming in here, we need to say that the actor name, if these are collided, we need to say the actor name equals actor faces. And also we need to do the same with our obstacle as well. So let's use this one. So this is going to be obstacle dot name equals the obstacle faces. So we're coming in here and we come in here and dictionary objects actor.name equals blank. So we've blanked them out, and then we get into here and we're saying the actor faces and the obstacle faces. Well, this is going to overwrite each time. So this line becomes obsolete. We don't need that in there. Now we're saying if we come into the collision, then the active faces and obstacle faces are stored away. But we hit a problem, because when we come in here and find other faces are in collision with some other objects that are in there, then it's going to be overwritten rather than appended to. This is an overwrite. So we need to know how to append and overwrite this. So if I take dictionary objects and just recreate it down here. So we're going to define that as a dictionary, and then we're going to say dictionary objects box in whatever quotes you're using equals, and then in square brackets the faces, so 1 and 2 are in collision with this one. Then we have that dictionary object there, and within that we have our box. You can see we've got the faces there. When I try to append to that, well, if I used this command again, and we say 3 and 4 this time, then box will now equals 3 and 4, and we've lost our 1 and 2. So what we've got to do is use the word append, and we use dot append, and in brackets we can pass our list 1 and 2. Hit enter, and now we've got 3, 4, 1 and 2, and unfortunately I passed it in as a list, so I've appended that as a list. What we need to do is come in, and instead of appending 1 and 2 as a list, we need to append these individually. So append 1 and append 2. Now when we look, we will have box 3, 4, got 1 and 2 there, so we don't need those in there, 1 and 2. So if we first assign and then we append. For this we obviously need some different code in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when we're in here, is I'm going to pull in the dictionary objects. So for that I'm going to come in, and I want to use in here global and call in dictionary objects, and I'll be assigning the values to that. If I did this, dictionary objects equals open and close those braces there. So what we're going to do now is come in, and with this one we're saying if length active face is greater than 0 and length obstacle face is greater than 0, then we start doing our assignment. But we first need to know if our box, our cylinder, or our body is already present, whether we're already checked, we found some in collision, and now rather than creating a new item in our list, we're actually appending to the old one. For that we can use the words in. So we can check whether, let's say at the moment we've got box in here, we can say box in dictionary objects. And that will pull back a true. And if I lowercase the b of that box, then that will pull back a false, because box uppercase and box lowercase will mean they're two different objects. So the minute I assign a lowercase box to that, let's do something different in there, let's just say 1 in there, then if I ran box in objects, that will come back as true. So we can use that in here. Now I'm going to actually make use of these checks on active faces and the obstacle faces in there. And we're going to split these up into 2 if statements. I'm going to take this one here and place it in the correct position. So within our check for the faces, and we've got the check for the obstacles. Now what we want to do is do a secondary check in here and check whether it's already in our dictionary objects. So we want to say if actor.name in dictionary objects, then we need to do something different here. Else we need to do this. So we need to add the append in here. We have to do this one by one because we've got our active faces in here, which is a list. So we need to iterate through that list to get them in there. So in here we place a 4. Now I'm just going to use face in active faces. Now this is a face index that comes back, so we're going to use face IDX in active faces. So that face IDX will be each one of these objects. Remembering this is a list, so go through the whole list and pull back each of those IDs as a single entity. And we're going to use dictionary objects. We need to pass which one we want, so this is the actor name. Remember to add the dot, and then use dot append, and we pass in the face IDX, face index. So we've added that to our collection. Let's take this and do the same down here. So we're saying if the obstacle faces are greater than 0, so we've got something back, come in, and we're going to check on the obstacle name to see if it's in the dictionary objects. And if it is, then we're going to run for face IDX in, now this one's got to be obstacle faces instead, and change this as well to obstacle dot name. So we're appending the face index onto there, and we need the else, and we need to create it if it doesn't exist. Now this isn't going to work as of yet, because when we go to color it, then we've got some different logic up here. So I'm going to come in up here and have a look. We've got the color objects here, and we've got the FreeCAD.console.print message here, and I'm just going to put a return in here so we can see what comes back. Just going to check through the code to make sure everything's okay. It all looks good. So that's macro, execute macro. See, we haven't got a selection yet. So I'm going to select the cube. Nothing collision yet because we haven't selected 2. Control select the body, and you can see that's being filled up now with values. And that's, just stop this, put something in the comment, and let's have a look, see if we've still got that in there. There we go. So you can see the open brace there and the close brace. But you can see we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 and then 2, 3, 4, 5 in there. So we've got those doubled up in there. So let's have a look, see what's going on in there. Let's come into our macro and have a look. We've already got the actor faces, and we're going to go through every single object in here and check if we're in collision with those objects. So we don't need the obstacle really, because we're going to get to the obstacle at some point. So we're checking actor with obstacle, and then the next obstacle, and then the next obstacle. And we report back which faces have collided. When we move to the next obstacle, and that becomes the actor, then we're going to check that new actor with all the other obstacles in there. So we don't need this bit here at all. So we'll take this out. This reduces our code. Let's clear this window and clear this one. And execute that. And take the comment out. Macro. Execute macro. Nothing selected. Select this one. And then select our body. You can see this is running much faster now. And if we just come into the comment and stop that and have a look, you can see we haven't got any duplication anymore. But we've got the body in there as well. So we can see the box has collided and then it goes through the checks on the body. So now we've got this code that detects the faces that are in collision. We can now start blending in our function. I'm just going to go and get the function, which is in the macros. I've saved it off. This is the function here, and I don't need the calling code. I just need this. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it into our main function. Now we've got a number of other functions here that may get removed. Let's place it in here, start. And we'll just tidy up. We're going to remove the print. And we're going to remove the completed print and the others as well. Just tidying that up a bit. So we have to pass this an object and a list of faces. So let's come down to our main function, process objects. And we've got the color objects in there, which is this one, which we no longer need. So I'm going to get rid of that. And that color object also colors the shape red and green there. Let's remove this call. So now we're just building a list of faces. So we've got our function. This takes an object and a list of faces. So we're going to need to pass in each of those objects and their faces are in collision. So I'm going to do that for the actor. So each time we go around, we're picking up the actor, checking which faces are in collision, and then we're going to color them. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call this function. So the color face. We're going to clean this function up in a minute because we don't need the red or the green in there. No, they're up here. Or I may remove them from here because we don't need them here. But we'll do that in a mo. So I'm going to come in here and call the color face. And we're going to tab that in to this 4 here because we're going to use the actor. So this is the object that we're passing. We also need to pass the faces. That can be passed by using this command. So we're finding the faces in the dictionary of objects by using the actor name. And then we close the bracket. So this should call this function here. I can see red and green in here. I'm going to remove them from up the top here because we don't use them. And looking through, I can see a problem, but I'm going to show you what it is in a minute once we start running this. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down, and where this color face is, I'm going to come in, add a print message in here. So I'm going to use the print message just before this command, and we're just going to check to make sure we have something in this dictionary objects. And also we're going to check what name we're looking for as well. And we're going to use the actor.name in there. So now we're going to be running this loop, and then we've finished in this loop. We're going to come out of it, run these two console print messages and the color faces, and then we're going to go back up and go to the next item in our selection and use that as an actor. Let's run this to see what we get. So I'm going to come in and take the comment out, execute the macro, no selection there. So that's view, the panels and report view. Got no selection coming in there. And let's go in and select something. And selecting the box, we have an error that's come up, and we can see that our box has been selected, but there's nothing in there yet. So that's running that piece of code. But at the moment, it can't find anything in our dictionary objects because that object hasn't been added to our dictionary objects. There's no collision being taken place, so we need to deal with that. So this is the process of programming. You'll fix one problem, you'll approach another, and then you look at your code and rethink it and decide where that piece of code will go to actually fix that problem. At the moment, we can't find that object although we've selected it, because we only add that object if we have a collision that's taken place, which is in here. So we can start to refine this code even more. For instance, this command here, we can use when we come in with each of the actors, and we can place this in here and equal it to a blank list. That means that object will be in our list. So when we come down here, we don't need to run this command here. We can get rid of this and also get rid of the else. Bring this back. And we just need to run this piece of code. We just do some tidying up. So we come in, get the actor, we add the actor to our list with a blank list. Then if we're in collision, we start adding the faces in there. And because we've already got that name in there, we just append to that list. Let's give this a go. So I'm going to clear these two screens and execute that macro. You can see now we've got box with nothing in there, and we keep on going through because it's been cleared all the time. We've also got something selected in here. As you can see, the cube selected. So unselect that, and we've got no selections coming up. So I'm going to select the cube and select the body. So let's stop our macro and see what's happened. And there is colouring on the body, but the wrong colouring is there. So let's see what's happened. So you can see we've got some data here, and we've got box and body here, and what's been collided. But if we look, you can see that this face should be the same colour as this face because those two are collided. So what's actually happened here? Well, if we click on this face here and look down to the bottom left, you can see that says macro placement dot box face 3. And if we look at our box, we've got a face 3 in there, which is correct because that's in collision. Now, this one here on the body, if we look down to the bottom left, you can see that says face 4, and the body says face 4. So those values are in there, but they're not being coloured. Let's take a look at our code. So we come into the color faces and pass in a list of faces, and then we come down into the for loop. There is a problem here in that we've got a zero based index in our faces. So for instance, if we take the box and we set b equals FreeCAD dot active document dot get object and pass it the name. So we're looking at the box. So B is now our part. If we do b.shape.faces and hit enter, you can see we've got a list of faces in there. Now this list is zero based. Do a length on this one. So you can see it's coming back 6. And because this is a list, our index starts as 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's go back to our code. So we're coming in and we're doing for index in range of number of faces. So we're picking up the number of faces there. So if we come back down here and emulate that, number of faces, we know it equals 6 here. So let's just do the length and then do no faces. It should equal 6. But if we did a range on there, that'll go to 0 to 6. And then if we look at this for IDX in range for number of faces, hit enter, and we're just going to tab and print IDX, hit enter again, and we'll use number of faces in there. So let's do that again because it's no faces. There we go, and print IDX. Thought that might catch me out. So there we go. So we're going from 0 to 5. So a list is zero based index. And the trouble is when we change the color of a face, so I jump into the part here and we're going to look for face 1 on here. So that's face 3. There's face 1 there. There is no face 0. Face 1, change the color of that. So we come in here, you can see it's saying faces and we'll click that one. That's face 1. But our list is zero based index. So we're going into the list and we're saying, is the IDX in faces? What we need to do is add 1 to this IDX. So in here, to make it descriptive, I'm going to use the words face index equals IDX plus 1. And then we use face index in here. We don't need the brackets in here in this if. Let's take those out. Doesn't matter, it's just a preference. And I'm going to use face index in there. And that should solve our problems. So we're taking the index, which is a zero based index, we're plussing 1 onto it so it matches up with the faces, because we'll never have a face 0. In the collection, face 0 is actually face 1, because they start from 1 with the face index on the shape, but they start from 0 with our list. Let's try that now. So we've got all these, and we've got colors basically all over the place at the moment. So let's clear this and clear our Python console. We don't need this function anymore, so we can get rid of that. First, come over to the comment, make sure we haven't got anything in there. Nothing selected. Execute the macro. Come back, click on the cube. That's all green now. And let's click the body. That's all green. Let's click the body and the cube. And we can see we've got data coming in. And when we click off, you can see that we've got a number of faces that are colored. So we've got the red face on the bottom, which intersect. We've got the red faces on the sides that intersect, and same on this side, and we should have the top and the front there of that cube. So we can see how that collision is actually working now. We don't need this output, that's just really slowing us down, so we're going to take some of this away now. Let's stop that macro, come in, let's have a look down and just do a little bit of neatening up. We're not actually running this, we can get rid of it, but I may use it in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of hash symbols there, which will rem those out. So hash symbols, rem them out. Or we could use 3 single quotes. We don't need those hash symbols. See, everything's gone grey at the moment. And I'm going to use 3 single quotes here. So we just remmed that out. That's a block comment, commented or remarked all this out. Let's come down and have a look, see if we've got any output. And we've got this FreeCAD console print message there. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of this one as well. And also the else. So when I run this now, we've got no output. Macro, execute macro, that's running. And now if we click on the cube, that's all green. Click on the body, that's all green. And we want the body, and control click cube. And then we'll click off, we can see the collisions that have taken place. So that's a simple collision detection in there, using the proximity and colouring the individual faces. So in the next video, we'll be moving away from the while loop and implementing a timer to run that code. We'll be going through the reasons why and the benefits that it gives us. And that'll be on the channel next week. If it's not already on there, please check back. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to my site. And also I have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate a few pence or a few pounds, dollars, or whatever your currency is. And that's at ko-fi.com/mang0. And there you'll be able to help me fund my site, and all the money that I actually get from any funds will actually get pushed back into the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing. I'll see you next time.